Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in your time zone and on your own screen. Today, we have the pleasure and the honor to see back some of our fabulous analyst relation responsible friends and family candidates, to say so. To all, we have a very trusted advisory, special relationship, friendship, you can tell. And we are very happy that we have them all together here, shining bright and full of insights they would love to share with us, hopefully soon. To make a short introduction round, I would like to encourage starting, if it's all right, with Sandy, where you come from, whom you work for, and what you are looking forward to today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. I truly love this group and, enjoy these sessions every single time. So, hi, everybody. My name is Sandy Lowe. I work for Zoho Corporation as the global head of corporate communications. And I'm just looking for some truth, some confessions, and really just, have a lively conversation with my peers here.
Did I just hear confessions?
Yes, or maybe AI confessions, since this is going to be on topic here.
We admit it all.
I love that statement, and it's brilliant. I would like to go on my screen one step ahead and ask Ludovic to introduce himself, please.
Hey, hi, I'm Ludovic Lefortier, the founder of Starsight and also of the one of the co-founders of the IAR. Been doing AR for a little while, just under 30 years, and I'm really looking forward to that amazing conversation with you all. I'm really glad to see you all. It's been a ball last time, so it's great.
Fantastic. Trish, would you like to continue, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Trish Harmon. I work at SAP and am super excited to be here. I love AR, so spending 45 minutes, an hour talking about AR with a bunch of really smart people is a great way to kick off an afternoon from my point of view. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. And now, last but not least, Sarita Kincaid, please introduce yourself. And the little teaser on top, you are very active in the IIAR as Ludovic as well. And so that is the special note on that one. Now, please continue.
Oh, thanks. Sarita Kincaid, I lead global corporate communications at Sugar CRM. And you said, where are we from when you kicked it off? Seattle, but living in California. I'm also really looking forward to talking with the group again here. I don't have any true confessions, but let's chat. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. And we have already, thanks, Thomas, the starting point.
Oh, thanks,
well, high praise. One needs to say high praise.
The bro hammer.
I think we could probably reverse that. If many analysts were like John, we would have fewer quibbles too. So,
yeah.
It's
but then,
always a pleasure.
Not hard to butt heads with John, right? And it's a good thing if one is able to, actually, because usually there's a good outcome after.
What you said with the confession, Sandy, is something which is going into the direction of that an honest word under friends is something which is creating a value in a relationship and positive appreciation. That is something what I feel with all the comments in writing or here when he is on stage in another scenario, that he is always a friend who has his honesty on his lips and on his tongue if he's not writing. Yeah. So what I am very grateful for is that you have all, from your different perspective, seen a lot this year going around. So what would be your first take in that ever faster changing, to be, from my perspective, crazy world, change your engagement with industry analysts? How are things moving forward? Would you like to start, Sandy?
No, certainly. I think the pace of interactions have accelerated. I don't even know by how many times, because whether it's AI or just AI driven technologies, it's just you can no longer wait once a quarter or even once a month, definitely not once a year at a analyst summit to show your strategy and roadmap anymore, because what is happening behind the scenes is product teams are changing roadmap you know constantly. So the pace certainly has been one way to change. Another is, there's too much hype right now. So, our interactions, at least we try, you guys tell me, we try to focus less on the hype and more on the actual value. So really trying to flip that around along with the pace. So I guess those are two things to start with.
Lovely. Sarita, would you like to continue on that topic?
Yeah, I guess two things. One is Sandy touched on it, AI. Everybody, both kind of from the outbound perspective, everyone, all vendors are trying to get in and talk about everything they're doing, whether they're doing it or not in some cases. So there's the hype there. And then also AR teams are being pushed to use AI more and more. It's in its infancy, I would say. I've been doing some surveying of my peers across the industry. What are you doing? How are you using it? And, varying degrees, but it's interesting. I think it's a big change. And then another thing I'm seeing this year in AR, although, it's really been amongst most people, I hope, in the AR field, something that they've been doing all along, but I'm seeing a lot more focus with AR being connected to customer success. So, and therefore analysts. So those are a couple things.
Lovely. Trish, would you like to continue?
Yeah, it would have been nice to see if we could have got through the first 30 seconds without mentioning AI. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I agree with Sandy and Sarita. I think that's been a big impact on what we're doing. I think it's two-sided, right? I think it's not only from us as practitioners, how we're using AR, how it's changing our daily jobs, but I also think it's for the companies we represent, it's kind of pushing through the what's real and what's not real from an AI perspective. There's so much out there, like it's, what do you, more the adoption, I think, is where I'm trying to have to focus a lot of my conversations on. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing, but this is how customers are actually using it. Yeah. So there's been a lot of, I think just hype, right? And so we're really focused, to Sandy's point, on showing that adoption and that customer connection. So I think that's probably been the other thing. I also think, to Sandy's point, the pace, we're seeing a lot more research come out a lot quicker from a lot of analysts now, which I think also impacts us, right? Because it impacts our stakeholders, it impacts us in our day work. So those are kind of two things I've seen change a lot, is I would say AI and just kind of the pace of the research, because I think everyone's trying to stay relevant, right? So I think in that is, you can't publish something once every 12 or 18 months. So those are kind of some of the things I'm seeing.
That makes you wonder what's going to happen to some of those big landscape reports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If something takes 6 months to publish,
right. That's crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, looking back a year in arrears isn't going to be very relevant.
Yeah. I just got asked this morning about a report, and I'm like, it's, someone wanted to look into it. I'm like, the topic is AI, and I'm like, it was published in March, and I'm like, I don't recommend we look into this any further, because I think it's just going to change. And the person, after we had a conversation, was like, oh yeah, I think you're probably right. It's like, it's just, things are moving so fast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In talking in this direction, what is your take, Ludovic?
Well, it's quite difficult to add anything after such a brilliant panel. It's a number of things, right? So if you look at garbage in, garbage out principle, there's a lot more data collection using AI. So analysts can do a lot of things faster. Some folks have even devised an LLM model for analysts to accelerate their work, right?
Okay.
So there's an offering and there's a company set up to do that. The analysts are now admitting that they're using AI to produce research, which I think accelerates the data collection. So that's maybe good. It's a produce. Sometimes the results are a bit strange. I've seen some stuff produced by some analysts, and I would specifically point out the emerging magic quadrant in there. I think it's a good conversation to have, maybe, where we're seeing some really bizarre results at times. So analysts are iterating faster, they're producing faster things. They can't stand still. I think you're all right. When 2 years ago, I remember very well when we had the OpenAI $10 billion deal with Microsoft, everybody thought, oh, wow. Some analysts were very quick. Of course, the boutiques were very quick at React. Forrester did some good takes, interesting takes, and Gartner took their own sweet time. I think everyone realized now that's not sustainable. I completely agree with what Trish said, for instance. And now that we're in the thick of it, we're coming back off that AI bubble, and I think it's down to what Sandy's saying. We need to show return on AI, and what's the customer case, how we're using it, because it's just like electricity. It doesn't mean anything in itself. It means something when it's applied. And on the other hand, it means that AR people like us have to face more stuff, more evaluations, more things, and then we see AR people starting to use LLMs to fill in evaluations. So it's the sword and the shield race, arms race, and I'm not sure how it's going to end.
We are also not yet sure, but I appreciate very much the opportunity that you said. There is a lot of movement and there is a lot of value. Thomas, sorry.
Looking at what you just said, Ludovic, there are immature quadrants, my words, not my interpretation of your words now, things that used to work and may probably not work anymore. So to basically Sarita, Trish, and Sandy, do you see analyst work that doesn't work for you anymore, or the other way around, things that work better than ever before? The other way around, from your end, which tactics and strategies to engage and work with analysts have changed? Let's start with Trish.
Okay.
Sorry for putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah. So I have to digest the question. So yes. I mean, I think the way we're seeing, what we're doing, what we're working, who we're working with has to change. And part of it comes with my earlier comment is the speed at which things are changing and we're being asked to do things. We're having to make some hard decisions sometimes on where we're able to spend our time. Not only my time, but also my stakeholders' time, right? They all have full-time jobs. So I think for us, it gets a little bit tricky figuring out kind of where we spend time with some of that. And it's not like we don't want to do it all, but realistically, we can't do it all, I would say. So I think I don't know that's changed so much. I think that's always been the case, but I think it's going to get harder as things move, especially with the addition of AI and, a lot of our analyst firms being, really incented to push out more frequent research. So I think that will change how we do our jobs, I think. What was the second part of the question?
Well, things that from analyst side work better or worse than before. And the other side is from your end, better or worse.
Wow. Nothing is like popping to mind right now that works. I mean, definitely not worse. I think better. I mean, I think there are some advantages to AI. Like I love when I can summarize a call, like I don't have to take notes, so I can actually be present on the call. That's really nice to have things like that. But to Ludovic's point about how we're seeing LLMs filling out surveys and stuff, that doesn't always make less work for us, right? Because I just had I had a thing pre-populated and most of it was stuff that was not usable, so I think it's I think it's just going to take some time. I don't know what you're seeing, the rest of you are seeing.
Agree on that. I just finished an RFI that took me a lot longer, actually. going through and fixing than just going through in the first place. But to kind of address the topics. So one thing I'm noticing that has changed or isn't working, I don't know, at least on my end, as well as it used to, is like interactions with kind of the big three. They're a lot more formal. There's a lot more rules. That's what I'm experiencing. I don't know about the rest of the panel. I'd love to hear from you guys on that. But it's a lot more restrictive, I think, than it has been in the past. So, having inquiry in the two-way conversations is just more key than ever before, because the one-to-many or the one-to-one briefing just doesn't cut it with the more restrictions I'm seeing there. So I'll stop there, and then I have a second on what is working well. So what do you guys think? Are you guys seeing that too?
Who's you guys?
My panelists, my peers. Are you guys seeing more restrictions with the big three?
Restrictions meaning
Like how they will and won't engage. Like, for example, and I can't call the firm out. So one firm of the big three, that I've worked with, has in the past been more lenient, let's just say, on inquiry, like what you could have inquiry on and what you can't. And now two of the three are very, very, dialed into very specific rules.
Like it has to be based on published research, that
type of thing.
Yeah.
Or won't do like a SWOT or comparative.
Yeah, they don't
analysis.
like SWOTs.
Yeah.
And nobody likes SWOTs anymore. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, just even the conversation. And so I find that's a lot more restrictive. Ludovic, what about you? Are you seeing that too?
Absolutely. I feel like they've always been restricted, but yeah, now thinking about this, absolutely, meaning who can join and within what topic, certain time frame, scope, everything now has extra set of rules that weren't there before. I do think it works against them, but yeah, absolutely.
There's
Definitely
been
saying the same thing.
There's been a diminishing of value. I mean, it started with Kevin Lucas at Forrester advising people at the AR Council they should run an inquiry after each briefing. So people started doing that, and then management went in and say, actually, you can't do that anymore. It's too much. I think in particular for Forrester, they're moving to a direction where they do more consulting. They do the directions session every month, and it can rack up to 50 hours a month, right? So they're trying to see how they can deliver it. I don't think it's sustainable, but I think the days of setting research, making extremely good 85% plus margin on trackers and that kind of things, those days are gone. And you cannot either replace that with advisory, so consulting and inquiries and things like that, because obviously the margins are much thinner. So it questions the whole analyst business model. Forrester's put a lot of rules in inquiries. The other ones are following suit. In the end, they're diminishing the value of it. So there will be a backlash because clients will wake up and say, well, listen, we're paying for insights, not to read the written word. They've also come back with a chatbot called Isola. They're not the first ones to have done that. Field First and HFS was the first to have done that. Will that work or not? Will people interrogate research versus reading it? I'm not sure, but I think the days of selling content essentially are behind us largely.
Interesting.
That brings us directly in the realm of where's the ROI. So do you see that with these additional rules and regulations that are coming, that actually this is a boon or a boost for the value of smaller and independent advisories?
I think it's a boost. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think also kind of the second part of the question, what is working well? And that's that there's more voices in the industry coming at it from different perspectives. With independence, as everybody knows here, I mean, there's fewer rules. They set the rules on how they want to interact and how they're going to work with vendors or customers or the market at large. So I think it's a big boom for independence.
They're more agile, they're flexible. They don't need to follow a script. And I think that, even with all this AI talk, Trish, sorry to bring up AI yet again, I think AI remains a hyper personalized profession and the relationship is still hyper personalized. So, I think an approach that we've always taken, like what Trish was saying, is like, the people that you are working with, what they're good at. Some are good at go-to-market strategy, some are good at roadmaps, some are good at messaging. And some are good at content. So you know their strength and you sort of personalize the program to their strength, right? And so that is something that I don't foresee changing. But what I do see as a challenge for analysts, whether they're at big firms or an independent, is that how do you show your unique knowledge, expertise, and value in a way that is not going to be easily summarized by something like ChatGPT. One of the confessions I did want to make is, what? Competitive research has gotten a lot easier. And the engine pulls in different sources for you as a starter. So if I'm able to sort of get this view, why do I then need a very high level SWOT with XYZ firm that costs 5 figures? So, I know there is additional value, but that's the thing, is how do you as the analyst then differentiate, what you can bring to the table? So just a few of my earlier takes based on what we're talking about here and ROI.
Now looking at exactly what you're just saying right now, Sandy, is basically that suggests relationship let's say in a less formal engagement level. Yeah. So mutual trust. So now small as well as big analysts are working with more than one vendor. So in how far does this endanger the level of trust? Because you're working, let's say, Sarita is Sugar, Trish is SAP, Sandy is Zoho. So all three of you are working in very overlapping areas. Yeah. So it means there are some trade secrets that you surely don't want to have slipped anyhow, accidentally. Yeah. So how does this dilemma affect your work with analysts?
I'll tell you, I've never ever had an issue with an analyst sharing anything that I've said, okay, this is NDA, or that they know, oh, don't share. It's just never been an issue. You guys are professionals, you know the wall, you know how to help us all individually while still having hopefully an open mind about everyone. So I don't think it's a huge issue. I haven't run into that. How about you guys, Trish, Ludwig, Sandy?
Just not an issue for me.
No,
Never.
Just never ever been an issue.
Yeah.
About 6 months ago, I heard a rumor from someone. This was not internally, and
it's a confession, Trish.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a confession, and I heard it from someone, and I was like, I don't buy it. I just don't buy that person would do that. And roundabout way, I heard from the said person, and was absolutely livid. So I've never seen it. That was the only time in my career I heard it bubble up, and I knew as soon as I heard it wasn't true. Always assume best intent, I think, is kind of, a good rule of thumb where I've
or theoretical topic.
And even when analysts are telling you something, that you feel is close, I always think they know that line, right? Like, I can share this because this is publicly, I know this part of their roadmap has been shared, or this was shared at a conference where it was with, so analysts know their place. I never question that ever.
Mm-hmm. So if we are thinking that the value of AR analyst relationships lies in creation of success for clients. Well, not my clients, basically your clients or your prospective customers. How can that be achieved even better than now? Because, just confession from my side. Yes, this is confession day, right? There are vendors around who still they don't want criticism, however disguised. Criticism in the form of praise. This is what they want. And this doesn't create customer value. So how do you see yourself and your teams engaged to create customer value? Sandy?
You know that we are, I don't run into that type of attitude. I think that that most of the product leaders at Zoho want the criticism, want the transparency, and they are humble in that way where we know that we have a lot of room for improvement, right? And and I don't know if Mr. John Reed is still there, his events playbook, and we always put our customers front and center, and you guys grill the heck out of them. And a lot of times these conversations expose many of our gaps. But guess what? You learn our flaws. The customers know we're listening. We learn our flaws. So the next year, when we have customers up there again, there's that consistency in showing that we are bridging the gaps, that we very much have. So I think there's a lot of humility. And I don't think someone can gain the most out of analyst relations unless they are willing to listen and they are ready for a very transparent conversation. Unless it's relationship and transactional. Here, let me pay you 5 digits here, and you create this report for me that says how great I am. Now, who's going to ultimately benefit? I don't know. But that's definitely not what, I believe or what we think AR is all about. We want to improve. We want to hear our many flaws and, show that we can improve.
I think it's a question of maturity, Sandy, in terms of both the AR program and the company and execs. Clearly we deal with a number of clients. Some are very small, and when we deal with founders, sometimes the evangelistic side, and there's a reaction, they don't agree with us and they're against us. And then we have a whole conversation about understanding where the analyst comes from and not to shoot a messenger and rather understand why the perspective. And on the other scale of the thing, I often have companies which are institutionalized and then the branding's not right, in the analyst doesn't work and all that. And it's a question then to have an education about actually what do you pay for? Do you pay for independent advice or just a marketing paper? And we don't always win the argument, but we always make the case. And I think it's every responsible AR person to have that argument with stakeholders or clients about if you want an analyst to be your mouthpiece, then you diminish the value of the analyst, then you diminish the value of the brand of the analyst, and then you get less for your money. And we don't always win the argument. It's a tough one.
There's a lot in there, Ludovic, too. It's like, is your AR program and does your company have the appetite for the learn side AR? Do they want the insights? Or like you said, Ludovic, do they just want a mouthpiece, right? So, and that is, it's a great question. And an AR program should have a balance of go-to-market, outbound, and incoming insights to inform roadmaps and product. The problem is a lot of teams think that, your product leaders, sometimes founders, but they think that, they're the smartest. What can an analyst teach me? Okay, just go out to go to market with the analyst, go write a white paper. And it's very hard sometimes to change their perception when they think they're the smartest person in the room. So that's tough, and one of the ways that I got around a situation like that in the past was, okay, you think you're the smartest person in the room. That's fine. We need to work with this analyst. They're talking to our customers. They're bringing back insights. Eventually, over time, the relationship became trusted and they realized what the analyst could bring them, which did relate to roadmap, right? Through the mouths of the customer. So, the challenge for sure.
I think what that illustrates, and sorry, Trish, I don't want to interrupt you, but what I think working with analysts is actually easy because we just go to the analyst and say, what would you like to know? And the analysts actually usually tell us, say, oh, I'd like to know about roadmap. Or say, okay, that's fine. And then we go back to the stakeholders or the clients and then say, ooh, the roadmap, oh, I'm not sure about that. Ooh, difficult. And then, so it's about educating and working with stakeholders, which I think is the hardest part. And very often, analysts don't realize that AR's role is much more about being the bearer of bad news, being the bad cop inside the company, and it's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah, we often, I refer to ourselves oftentimes as the forcing function, right? Like we are definitely the forcing function, that makes things happen because of questions to get the analyst. Yeah, Sarita, I like what you were saying about kind of when we've had this, and Sandy, you're lucky to not have had this very often. I run into it on occasion where, we have a spokesperson that just, doesn't agree. And sometimes they're right, like sometimes the like my stakeholder is right. And I see where they're coming from. But we also have to kind of, say play that game a little bit where it's like, okay. And I've found if you have a good enough relationship with the analyst, you can kind of take them aside and say, listen, this is where we're kind of at an impasse, this is what I need from you to kind of get past this. Because it's not going to happen on my side, so I think that's where I look at, thankful that AI won't take that part of my job, is because I have those relationships where I can just call an analyst up and say, this is what I'm running into on, internally. And again, back to the other conversation, most analysts will keep that confidential, that they understand that it's me coming to them as the relationship owner, and they want to help, right? Like they want, so I think there are ways around it, but it can be tricky sometimes to run into those things. But that's
Very tricky.
Oftentimes some of the fun parts of our job is when you can kind of, I don't know, repair or build that relationship. And then you've got, I've had it happen a long time ago in my career where these two folks ended up becoming like besties, right? And they couldn't, this was probably 15 years ago, couldn't stand each other. And I was like, okay, that's, that was progress.
Yeah. Same. I had an analyst at a firm who had just started years ago. And my stakeholders were like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a newbie in the field. He's never been a practitioner. Anyway, this guy was coming to a major show and his company the analyst firm didn't send him. So I got my executives, even though they didn't really believe in the guy yet, to tin cup and like buy him lunches and dinners and all this stuff. And then we had all this time with this guy and slowly through the years nurtured a great relationship with him, which has paid off for a lot of those folks still now in their careers at different companies. They're still close with this analyst who's given them great value. So
even nasty people can become friends through tease and squeeze on the right end and feed them some, to say so, sugar and nice stuff to go into the right direction. The value of the relationship is something which is very much touching me and also concerning me, that in these fast, crazy times, this might lose some ground. How do you see that, the appreciation on eyesight level, communicating and creating value together in the way of that the relationship is with the appreciation before business?
I'll hop in. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the R in AR is relations, right? And so the thing is, there's going to be a lot of technology. We talked about AI a couple of times today. There's always going to be something new. Things are moving quickly. A lot changes, but the relationship needs to be the center of what you have with the analyst, because that's always going to be there. And that's the trusted, nuanced thing. It's not the report. It's not the magic quadrant. It's not the presentation or the white paper or even the insights, which are great and important. The relationship is going to drive everything. And that trust is going to keep you close with the analyst. So that's definitely the most important thing.
Trish, how do you see that?
I mean, I can't disagree with anything Srita said, right? I mean, it's ultimately why I think all of us enjoy our jobs, right? Because it's based on these relationships that we have, with analysts.
Ludovic, a take from your end, please.
I think this is the fun part of the job, right? It's bringing the analyst, building that relationship as a trusted advisor, working on that, and that's the great thing that AI can't replace.
Mm-hmm.
It's artificial intelligence. It's not artificial relationships. So that's
Voilà.
good.
Yeah. Sandy.
Which
I agree
brings
with everyone what they're saying here. These folks for 2 decades, and their children's names, their pets' names. I mean, it's
Do you have a file on all of them?
yeah. You sing them through ups and downs. They like the conference room at a certain temperature, or they only need certain numbers of ice cubes with their drink and a specific type of beverage. I mean, these are things that you get to know someone, and I think it's that mutual trust. You can't fully have that mutual trust with
Yeah.
AI, maybe one day, but I think, there is just that human element that is always going to be needed. And hopefully that keeps our job relevant, and it keeps that value both ways.
I love this story. I talking about relationships. I sent my oldest daughter overseas a year ago to study abroad, and one of my favorite ex-Gartner analysts, he's no longer with Gartner, always talked about, he said, oh, let me know if she's around. Well, she went and spent a weekend. I mean, I sent my kid and one of her friends to spend a weekend with a Gartner analyst. And you know what, if you ask her today what her favorite weekend was, it was the weekend that she spent in the Cotswolds with him. So I think like it's hard to
Cool.
put a I don't know. It's just, that's the stuff I love about my job is, right, I have all these great people, smart people, great conversations that have impacted my life in many positive ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and Sarita just in the background asks whether we can talk about John's last comment. And yes, we can.
Yeah.
And not only we can, we should.
Yeah, no, I just, the whole slide deck commentary, and it was on a post that John did recently about the pushing one to many, the talking at which exec can have the most slides and get the most airtime. Oh my goodness. I thought that was a thing of the past. I read his post. I'm like, oh dear, this is still happening. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up, John. That's wonderful. I think that obviously everyone on this panel agrees the most important thing you can do with your analyst summit or events is to get analysts and customers dedicated time together. John mentioned something in his post around speed dating. Love that. I always do analyst one-on-ones with customers at my events and have customer speakers, and customers go to all the extra events and stuff like that. But I love the whole speed dating concept. Haven't done that formally for a while, but having that customer and analyst interaction as opposed to having just a bunch of slides and sharing things like roadmap and other things that can be shared in other venues. Good to have a roadmap discussion at Analyst Summit for sure. But, it needs to be more customer centric and like, how are people in the field really using your tools and finding success? My 2 cents.
And
Thanks, John, for the post.
Absolutely. And leaving it unscripted.
Yes.
And don't over moderate. Let them be who they are, including talking about your shortcomings, right? And so I think there is a certain level of control that a lot of vendors want to hold on to, but I've found that the most value comes from these candid conversations. And so absolutely agree.
One of our peers in the industry, Laura Mackey over at Five9, she had an analyst at her analyst summit moderate a panel with the customers. So all the execs were out of the room, including her. and they just had a candid conversation. And like you said, Sandy, it was what's working, what's not working. AR people are afraid, and executives are afraid sometimes to do that, but you're with a group of trusted analysts. If a customer says something really negative, the analysts know how to defray that and provide some context, and vice versa. No analyst is ever going to sell you down the river in front of customers. They might point out something, but they can also point out a positive. So I think that AR people and stakeholders should not be afraid of that, and provide those venues for the customers and analysts to just be informal, like you said.
So I had a situation.
Have you ever experienced a customer in a customer analyst vendor event invited saying something really bad about vendor?
Right.
Really?
No. I don't think it would happen. I said it would never happen. But I mean, if a customer, let's say you were in that situation where you were out of the room and the customers and the analysts were doing kind of their own roundtable, unmoderated by you, the vendor, and a customer said something bad, they probably wouldn't say anything horrible, right, in front of the analysts and others. But, if they said something kind of bad, the analyst would certainly hop in and give some context or offer some help. So I just think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, this as John just said, so the other disappointment, over-moderated panel, right? So these panels are there to provide information, unless they are there to provide marketing, which is another valid use case, but that should be in another occasion, right?
I think sometimes as vendors we try to put too many customers on a panel too. I think if you have 4 customers, sometimes it's just nice to have one customer up there because they get to tell their full story versus going back and forth. I think that can be complicated too with the over moderation. I think that's sometimes where the over moderation comes, because the moderator's trying to be fair to everybody that's up there and, not let it go kind of to one side or the other.
The most honest talk is on the non-watched coffee side, at the bar, after the sessions, and away from the panels. And I can only encourage the stakeholders and the customers to take a risk and have some fun with a deep analyst talk, such as we are just people. We have the heart at the right place, and we love to share good stories and also to learn out of some disappointments, to make it happen that it will not happen again if we give the proper advice.
Friend John is on a roll.
Yes, he is.
Which is good.
John.
Which is really good.
Actually,
John,
I
you
agree
made
with that
it.
comment. Yeah.
Oh la la.
You should just join in. One thing that I also often observe is that, these panels are moderated by some vendor, usually a marketing person of the vendor. Yeah? So why, less in your experience, but why in your thinking is this still the case? Why aren't vendors not consistently using outsiders like analysts to moderate these panels or do the customer interviews that then are either recorded, aired, or live in front of a customer audience?
I think sometimes it's who do you pick, right?
Sorry.
Like, how do you, like you have to pick person A over person B. Sometimes that gets sticky.
Or if it's at an analyst summit and you're
exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, sorry, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I think also some vendors kind of think they can do it better. Or I recruited this customer, I'm going to interview him. Or, I'm not saying that's with everyone, but that's certainly, I think, a thing.
I think we've evolved. I think I've been here 7 years. So the last 7 years we've evolved. And, the most recent one, like John said, we started using analysts. And Thomas, you might recall you were there. And, like Trish said, it's hard. I mean, how do you pick one person over another? And for us, it was Yeah, I mean, we picked folks who have very different styles. And just to be very honest, at least at our events, we really need more female representation. That is something that Zoho is continuously working on. So we picked 2 female analysts. And, and then it's not like the whole 45 minutes is the entire panel. And I think less than half is moderated. And then we really do open it up to let everyone ask questions. And, I don't know. It will continue to evolve based on feedback, right? But that was the very latest, and most people felt that it worked well. I think that we then run into issue, being so open ended and letting anyone ask questions to the customer. What I also found is that you give them an opportunity, and not everyone takes it. Thomas takes it, and John takes it, Joshua takes it, but not everyone
John and I are
does.
crazy.
So I'm still trying to find the right balance, and it will never look the same, I think, for our events, because we want to continue to experiment with different formats, improve until we get the right formula. If there is ever such a thing, probably not. So I think that feedback is really important for us as we continue to find the right level of engagement with the audience.
But I think your point, Sandy, about not everybody takes that is a good one, because that can get hard sometimes in these environments where it's like, oh, we got to go back to this person again. Why doesn't that table say something? That gets hard sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes and I think I just have to throw this out there, but my goodness, I hope you guys also feel me when I say that sometimes moderating questions and the people who raise their hands is a whole other art, right? That is
I'm laughing because I relate. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
we do too. Tap your head. Yeah, I'm kidding, John. We really don't tap your head, but you know what I mean. Yes, yeah. There's a whole art to that too, for sure. Because some people really want their voices heard, and get upset if you don't. So yeah.
It looks like we do not see all the comments, and that is.
But there was a comment on ROI.
You are referring to this one, right?
Yeah.
Shows very nice. Thank you for finding
this is not because we are not seeing all of them. This is because we are getting a lot of them, which is good as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we briefly went into it, but as Ludovic is interested in getting
let's
a little
play it again.
Let's do that. So
well, I think it depends how you define ROI, Shashi, right? So some people say, hey, it's all about coverage, which I think is very short-sighted. Some people say it's about sales influence. And then you can say, oh, only the analysts who actually talk to the customers can influence something, and then you'll get only ROI. I think that's also short-sighted, because all the analysts talk to each other, influence each other, and then you take a lot of firms are read by practitioners, right? That they're non-gated, they might be free at the point of delivery, and therefore you can't really measure traction. But when you commission analysts for specific tactics, smaller analysts are obviously much better value. We were talking about moderating customer panels. I can think about producing post-event conference for delegates in a private format, or running a cab. Independent analysts have got fantastic value. Do you get the same brand? No, you don't. So if you look at purely getting clicks on your website, maybe you don't get the same value. So it's really depending on what your marketing objective is, I think. And the problem is B2B marketeers, and I'm interested in your point of view, ladies, there is I find B2B marketeers are incredibly crude on how they measure value and ROI. Thoughts?
Who wants to start?
Yes. Yeah. How many clicks? Where is it in the funnel? What closes? All good, all important. But again, what about the insights part of the business? What about analysts who are affecting roadmap or strategic direction, or even helping with go-to-market messaging? Like, nope, that's not going to resonate. I've talked to, 50 of your customers in this vertical segment, and you guys are behind the times, so you're not addressing the real pain points. So you're right, Ludovic, it is super hard. There's no one ROI, obviously, but it really depends on what is the goal. But ROI can be very hard to track with AR.
Yeah.
Very, very hard.
Yeah.
Agree. I don't think I don't have a good answer, honestly.
Yeah.
Just to be completely transparent, I don't. A lot of it it has to do with just a feeling of value gained and trust built. And it's very qualitative, and
Yeah.
I really, this is enough for me to crack. And I would love to hear, Trish, how SAP is doing this.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. I mean, I think it's just a universal AR thing, right? I don't think it's a company thing. I think it's just a universal thing, and how how ROI is determined. And I think also it can depend on even to the project, right? Or to the analyst, or to what you're dealing with. So I think it really depends. I think it really
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
Hard question.
We had
back to what Sandy just said. So if you are saying it's increasingly qualitative, how does that jibe in a world that is increasingly quantitative?
It's really tough. It is really tough, right? As you're assigning, like, what are your AR goals? How are you going to measure them? People are more and more, it's a great point, Thomas. People are more and more, stakeholders are more and more uncomfortable with, what they would call like a squishy ROI, or something that's hard to track. It is a tough challenge. It truly is. It's always been there with AR, but it's really accelerated now with, the advent of more data, more metrics. Some of the like AR insights is certainly doing a lot to help quantify things with their tracking, but it's tough.
And I don't agree with some of the metrics. I feel like they are ultimately meaningless. And perhaps on the media side, and Srita and I both oversee the PR side of things too, right? On the media side, I still think they're fairly meaningless, but at least it makes sense to track views, share of voice against competitors, blah, 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 blah. But there are so many different roles that we actually hold. There's so many ways that we work with the analysts. Like, how do you track ROI for a messaging session? And, so I've been very fortunate that I haven't felt the pressure of, proving ROI in a quantitative way. And in fact, if we try to make it like, numbers of briefings, numbers of increase, that's fairly meaningless too. And then no one actually finds value in that either. So I haven't felt that pressure. But I do want to learn how others are doing it, and that's something that, my team and I know some of them are listening. Pooja, Liv, hello, everybody. We will continue to figure out as a team.
I think that with AR, one thing I'm noticing, that's kind of been more in the PR realm in past, share of voice, yes, but then also sentiment.
Yeah.
And this is all, this is the outbound. This is the PR, the go-to-market side of AR. Really sentiment, tracking that is becoming more prevalent, more important. Yeah. So.
But that's hard too, because like sentiment from an analyst sometimes can change 3 times in a 30-minute conversation, right? Depending on where it goes. So I just, KPIs are so hard. I think in our role, I don't want to ever be measured on number of briefings or inquiries, or even movement of a dot. Like I don't want to be measured on that, because
Well, I think like the whole number of briefing inquiry thing kind of used to equal kind of reach, kind of, for AR, which is okay, but it's not. Yeah, it's not a metric. The getting judged on where the dot is. I don't know how AR is ever going to divorce ourselves from that completely, because it's a group effort there. It's where the dot is in anything isn't just AR, right? It's across product teams, marketing teams, strategy, executives, etc. but AR always ends up, holding the ball, as it were,
Holding the
for that.
bag. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Thomas, bring it up, because I'm too silly to find it.
Oh, well, in the hope that I don't get it, there it is already. I don't get interrupted by yet another counter striking here. So John commented that next-gen analyst relations do require next-gen KPIs. What do you see as some of these next-gen KPIs that you like to track, or that you already do track? If this is not a trade secret.
I mean, I just think kind of going back again to, tonality, sentiment, are you getting this? These are outbound metrics. Are you getting covered? Are you getting covered as much as your peer vendors? And if so, what does that look like? Inbound, very, very tricky. But I think if there's, I guess the other thing outbound is, the quintessential issue for AR is tracking AR to revenue. Sometimes easy, sometimes hard. And then I think from an inbound perspective, and I do think this is hard, but showing ARs and the analysts' value, tracking the information that they give and how that's reflected in a roadmap. And then, but this can take years, right? Because, it gets in the roadmap. Then it has to get productized. And then how does that change and how does that product do out in the market? So that's a long-term ROI, but an interesting one to track for sure.
Well, we have 3 minutes left, and I would like to ask you, as my co-host just advised me that there is so much light and so much thunder, that I have the privilege of asking you our famous last question round. What is a project or an experiment with analysts that you always wanted to do but never dared to? Ludovic, will you start, please?
Taking them skiing. I've never managed to do an analyst summit in a ski resort.
Let's go for Sandy.
I wasn't even thinking something fun, Ludovic. Now you're going to make me.
I know, right?
I'm like thinking, one experiment I had done at tied to one of our Zoholics, our user conference tracks, and would love to do again is, while like putting analysts of different types on stage, and me or someone, a vendor, someone from Zoho as a moderator, and just ask you guys a tough question. Let you guys battle it out on, where AI fits into this and that. I want purposely curate, opposing point of views and let you guys, do that. And sort of instead of like actually Brett Leary is on, I don't know if he is, but actually he was the one who suggested I did that one time. And funny thing is most analysts left the room, but the people who remained, actually, I felt it was a really interesting and eye-opening conversation for us and our customers. So I would love to do something like that again. Yeah, not a skiing trip. That sounds a lot more fun, but an experimental conversation of opposing point of views.
Trish, any ideas on your side?
I've actually been pretty lucky in my career to be able to try some different and unique things. So, I was the one who kind of did the speed dating, and I had great support from my leaders to do that. And some good feedback from some trusted analysts as I was putting that together. So, I mean, I don't have anything. I've been able to do some pretty innovative things throughout my career that I've been lucky to have leadership support. So that will continue, right? We're always challenged to think outside the box and try new things. So I'm lucky that way.
Lovely. So Rita, you took us to the Tower of London and we were not puffed up. So we were lucky. But what is in your mind or on your mind for the next opportunity where you can do something special?
Well, okay. So from an event perspective, I'm working on it. Don't know yet. But, something that I think would be wonderful, but you just don't really see it. It would be an interesting experiment to put a stakeholder with doubts about a value of an analyst and an analyst who may not be 100% positive about your company in a room, and leave them there for an hour. When they get done talking small talk, what comes out of that? Is it something positive? Is it just more animosity? So be fabulous to see if it could break through some of the issues that people had and some of the holdbacks about working with analysts.
Maybe it's not only what comes out, but who comes out, right?
Right. I'll find out if I have a job after
Yeah.
he goes out the door first. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting perspective, such as this looks into the experimenting age and to the good old memories of rock concerts, where probably two people leave the room, but the chairs are broken or something of the furniture because they did not completely agree.
Doesn't have to be
Having
violent.
a rude joke on that one, I would like to wrap up for today. That's our CRMKonvo show for today. This hour just flew by, and trust me, we would love to repeat this. To our guests, thank you very much being with us this week. To our appreciated friends and family panelists, we had a lot of fun. Thank you for being here, for your time and insight. And please tune in next week when we dive into AI in action with our guest Jürgen Frisch, a journalist from Technic Radar and a valued friend of mine who has been in the comments section regularly these days, who will share his ongoing experiences with projects in German-speaking Europe, and especially on where is our friend Roy, R-O-I, in the real beef story. Looking forward to this. Please take care. Come back soon. And I highly appreciate that you have shared as our audience, as our panelists, your time with us. Thank you.
Thank you for
Everyone.
having us.
Thank you for
Bye,
having us.
guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Dankeschön.